Thank you, conference, and thank you for inviting me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. And it is your last day of conference, I'm aware, and we're supposed to be having one of the hottest bank holiday May, which for a Mancunian, that's quite a surprise. So hopefully we're all going to get to enjoy that bank holiday weekend for the next few days. It's been over 20 years since I was last called to see a headmaster, so to address a union of which 28,000 head teachers are members, it's a little nerve-wracking for me. As Shadow Education Secretary, I've been inspired by your movement. Since the 19th century, your union has fought to ensure that education is not just a luxury for the rich. You have elevated the teaching profession quite rightly to one of the most important professions in our society. And as a trade unionist myself, I know that it's those on the front line and not politicians that we need to listen to. But for the last 8 years, you have had a government that has ignored you. And they've pursued their ideological chaos and they've failed to pay attention to the fallout. They've missed their own recruitment targets 5 years in a row. For the second year running, more teachers are leaving rather than joining the profession, and 500,000 children are now in supersized classes, and tragically, a rise in poverty among school children. They wouldn't survive their own Ofsted inspection. In fact, they'd have been forced to convert to a Labour government. All of this conference is in an environment where they have capped your pay for the last 8 years and, of course, seen their own pay rise. It's the policy which has driven thousands of teachers from the profession. It's made it harder for you to recruit the staff you need and robs our children of the support that they deserve. They have the audacity to claim that our schools are receiving record levels of funding, even though we all know 2.7 billion has been lost from school budgets since 2015. You know this, and crucially, due to the fantastic Schools Cuts campaign by grassroots parents and organisers, parents up and down this country know this too. And yet, conference, no matter how many times they're told by teachers, school leaders, think tanks, and even the UK Stats Authority that their claims are not accurate, they keep making them. Despite their rhetoric, they are waking up to the fact that there are maybe challenges facing our schools. In their own document, one which they choose not to publicise, they've admitted that teachers' pay has been falling since they came to power in 2010. They found that the average teacher is £4,000 a year worse off since the Tories entered Downing Street. Conference, recognising a problem isn't enough. You need a plan to fix it. And I warned the Chancellor just 2 weeks ago in our Opposition Day debate in Parliament. I told them that they must invest in our children and in our future and in our schools. I didn't even ask them, conference, to match Labour's spending plans and investment for schools. I only asked them to deliver on their own manifesto pledges, and they refused to vote for that investment and that promise that they made to the electorate. Labour's plan for education isn't to simply improve on Tory policy. Conference, we want to do away with it. The next Labour government will create a national education service supporting everyone throughout their lives. Unlike the Conservative approach, the National Education Service won't be dominated by politicians in the corridors of Whitehall. It will be a meaningful and radical transformation of our education system, with teachers, staff and support staff playing a key role. We know competition instead of collaboration has harmed our education system, and that the fragmentation of education has left big holes in provision, lack of oversight and support to our desperately struggling schools. That's why Jeremy Corbyn and I launched the National Education Service Consultation just last month. This consultation conference will ensure that the National Education Service is developed, shaped and led by the people who know the education system best. And I will personally guarantee that the National Education Service is not another abstract education policy, but one that is grounded in the experience of all you here today. I'm a pragmatist when it comes to my politics, and I want everyone and every child to have opportunities in our country. So that's why conference, our National Education Service, will be based on evidence and will deliver a world-class education system fit for the 21st century and the challenges that we face as a country. We will ensure again that under Labour, every child matters. A cradle-to-grave, free at the point of use, public service that will support communities, build a better society and boost productivity and our economy. Our inspiration for the National Education Service is the National Health Service, our greatest achievement in government. The NHS was established to provide a cradle-to-grave healthcare for all. And that's precisely what the National Education Service will do. We know education has the most impact in changing people's lives in their early years, which is where the National Education Service will start. Parents and mothers in particular trying to work after having their kids and not being helped by a government acting as if everything is fine, where those on low incomes can't access the childcare that they need. Children who are left to a lifetime of inequality do not get the opportunities they deserve, and they can't access high-quality education in the early years. And the childcare providers struggling to make ends meet as it is are being failed by the government that simply will not give them the support that they need. That is why the next Labour government will not only give every 2 to 4-year-old 30 hours of high-quality early years education a week, we will give the providers the money they need to deliver it. Only days ago, it was revealed that the head teachers feel that those with special educational needs have been hit the hardest by the cuts to school funding. And only 2 weeks ago, was I there with my Charlie, who's in the audience today, who has a statement of educational needs, worrying about his transitional arrangements for when he goes into secondary school and whether or not that support will be available. Many parents up and down the country are having those meetings and worrying, and you know, as those leaders in those schools, what a concern that is for you as well, making sure that every child gets that support. But the government have still not given schools the resources they need. It's not good enough for a government to ignore the concerns and knowledge of the heads who are dealing with the daily reality of our funding cuts to our schools. But under a Labour government, we will do things differently. But we know that we don't have all the answers, because politicians never will. That is why we're consulting on the principles of our education service. And that's why I'm asking all of you today to contribute, to submit your views to the consultation process and ensure that the values that we base our National Education Service on are the values we need in our schools. I want to tell you, Labour is listening. Because a National Education Service should not be a scheme thought up by politicians and imposed on educators. We've had enough of that through the Gove years. It should be a shared endeavour. It should be something that we build together based on our common values and beliefs, established on our unwavering commitment to every child deserves the best start in life. That an excellent education system is a right and not a privilege. And that, of course, of a child's life should not be decided by where they were born or who their parents might be. A future that is built on those values in sight, and we can build it together, conference. By working together, we can create an education system and a nation that is truly for the many and not the few. And conference, I want to end on this particular point. I went to a so-called failing school, and it was that school, those teachers, that head teachers, those support staff, all of the people there that made me the resilient person that can stand in front of you today, that has become the Education Secretary-elect and has done so well. Because you taught me about making sure that you respect yourself and that you are valued and loved regardless of what other people say. That's what good schools do. And my school was considered a failing school. You didn't fail me. You created the person I am today. Conference, I know you stand for those principles, and I know that it's been very difficult for you over the last 8 years. I know that you felt let down by politicians and that they haven't been listening. I want to assure you that we are listening, I am listening, and together we will build a national education service that puts all of the children and all people at the heart of it. Thank you very much.